In this video, we're going to look at how to multiply algebraic fractions. Now, this uses the kind of same method we used for multiplying normal fractions. We just multiply the two top parts, or the two numerators, and we multiply the two bottom parts, or the two denominators. It's just easier to say top times top over bottom times bottom. For the first example, we're looking to multiply and, most importantly, simplify where possible. Now, we should always, when we're multiplying algebraic fractions together, look to simplify and try and leave our answer in simplest form. So we'll look at this first question here. So we have x squared over y multiplied by y over 4x. Now we're going to do the top times the top, so we're going to do this x squared multiplied by y, and that's simply going to come out as x squared y over, and then we're going to look at the bottom of the fraction. It's going to be the bottom times the bottom, in other words y times 4x, which I'm going to write out as 4x y. That's the two fractions multiplied together. All I now need to do is see if I can simplify it. Now, let's have a look first of all at the numbers at the front. This 4xy, obviously there's a 4 at the front of it, and this x squared y, there's a hidden 1 here. Now, 1 over 4 can't be simplified, so we're just going to leave that 4 at the bottom, and we'll not put anything at the top yet to see if we need to put the 1 or not. Now, x squared over x, there are two x's multiplying each other at the top and only one x at the bottom, so one of these will cancel with one of these. That will leave me with just an x at the top, and because I've now got something at the top here, I don't need to put this 1 in, and y over y, they will both cancel each other out, so the final answer here will just be x over 4. That's obviously quite straightforward, so we're not going to do a lot of examples of that. The only kind of variation on this you might see is something like this, 4x on its own multiplied by the fraction 3y over x. Now, when we have something that's not a fraction like this multiplying a fraction, this part only multiplies the numerator. And a good way to think about that, if you're unsure, is to think about that 4x here as a fraction. So if I wanted to, I could think of that 4x, or I could write it as a fraction by writing it as 4x over 1. Then the 4x would multiply the 3y. In other words, this original 4x would multiply the top part only, and this 1 at the bottom would multiply the x. Now, 1 multiplying x doesn't do anything, and that's why we say, well, we're only going to take this and multiply the top part of the fraction rather than... Now, as I said, if you want to, you can write that over 1 and just do top times top, bottom times bottom. But we don't actually need that part there, so I'm going to get rid of that very quickly. So we're only multiplying the top part here. So 4x times 3y is 12xy. And that will remain over x, because remember, we don't multiply the bottom part by this 4x. This is over 1, and therefore it's just 1 times x, which remains as x. Now, to simplify that, if I can, what I can do there is these x's will cancel, and that will just leave me with 12y. Now remember, when we're doing that, if I cancel everything off the bottom of a fraction, then it no longer needs to be a fraction, so we can just write that as 12y for our final answer. Okay, so here we have two questions for you to try. Pause the video, try the questions, and then press play when you're ready to go over them. Right, let's look at the first one here. Remember, it's just a case of top times top and bottom times bottom. So top times top, 3 times 4 first, that's going to give me 12, and then x times y to the 5 will just give me x y to the 5. Dead straightforward. And then move to the bottom. So 2 multiplied by this hidden 1 in front of here will just be a 2. And we have y cubed times x, which I'm going to keep in the same order. So I'm going to put the x first and then the y cubed at the end. That'll just make it a bit easier when I come to simplify. So let's look if we can simplify. 12 over 2, that can definitely be simplified. They're both divisible by 2 to leave 6 over 1, or just leave 6 at the top of the fraction. So I'm going to leave a 6 at the top. At the bottom here, I'm not going to put anything at the moment. It might be the case that we don't actually need there to be a fraction, so we'll leave that blank at the moment. We won't write the 1 in there at the moment. In this case, we've got an x and an x, so looking at the x's, they will cancel each other out. And then looking at the y's, I have y to the 5 over y to the 3. So there are more y's multiplying each other at the top here, and in reality, there are 2 extra multiplying each other at the top, because 5 is 2 more than 3. So when I cancel the 3 off here, it'll cancel 3 off the top, leaving behind 2 y's multiplying at the top. So that'll be y times y, or y squared. Now at this stage what I've done is I've cancelled everything off the bottom here. That y cubed will have gone, that 2 will have gone, and that x will have gone. So that actually leaves me with nothing but 1's at the bottom. So remember, when we cancel, we leave behind a little 1. But 1 times 1 times 1 would just be 1, and therefore we don't actually need there to be a fraction there. So I'm just going to change that fraction line into a double underline, because 6y squared will be my final answer. In the next question, we've got 6x multiplied by 2x over 3y. Now again, remember, if you're multiplying something that's not a fraction by a fraction, this will only multiply the numerator. And the reason this is think about it, this is over 1 technically, so the 1 will multiply the 3y, which won't change it, so it'll stay as 3y. So let's start off with top times top, or the 6x times 2x, that's going to give me 12x squared, and the bottom will remain the same, remember. Now when I come to simplify this, this is quite an easy one. The 12 over 3 will simplify to 4 over 1. You can divide them both by 3. So that's going to be 4 at the top and 1 at the bottom, but I won't write it yet and see if I need it or not. And then I've got x squared y. Obviously the x squared there's no x's to cancel with, and the y on the bottom, there's no y's up at the top to cancel with, so they're both going to remain where they are. So I'm going to have x squared left at the top and y left at the bottom. And that's it, fully simplified.